Hi everyone, I'm Rosemary. Here today to paint this gnome planter along with you. Now, this is such a versatile piece. It can be done for so many different occasions, holidays, or just to keep around and planting it all year round. I chose to do this one for fall, and there are some cute ones also done for the Christmas holidays, winter holidays. You could do it for spring. But right now, I'm going to walk you through doing it for the fall. Now I've glazed the insides of all of them, and those of you who have picked up the kits, they should not leak. You should be able to plant right in them, okay? And then the outside, you should seal when you're finished with it. If you're going to be putting it outside especially, you can use a water-based paint-on sealer. They come in matte or gloss, or you can use a spray. I prefer the spray, but go outside if you're going to spray, and make sure that you take everything in below 32 degrees. It shouldn't be left outside. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've started by painting the gray on the beard. I don't have much dry brushing on this. I believe this is pretty much the only area, or a little bit on the hat. So because when you dry brush, you spread out a little further, I do that first, so if it gets on the other areas, it's easier to cover up with the darker colors. And I usually start with my lighter colors. So what I'll do next is I'll do the planter next. So I started with the gray, and then I'm going to do the white dry brushing on it. Now you should have a paper towel handy, which this one's a little wet, but I'll use it anyway. You don't wet your dry brushing brushes. You keep them dry while you're working with them and wash them when you're finished with them. When they're wet, it makes a big difference in trying to put the color on. So I put a little bit of paint in the brush. I work it out on the paper towel that it's evenly dispersed in the hairs of the brush. And I always hold my paper towel. I never just do this, because you didn't get the paint off of the complete area that you put it on the brush. So go back and forth, and you can always do more. You can always put more in. Now it's a light coat when you first start. I go against the grain. And I'm sure that if you've looked at some of my other videos on the gnomes, all of the beards are pretty much done the same. You can do it in brown. You can put, different colors on it, reds, which a lot of like elves and stuff have red beards. I keep choosing to do the gray. I like the gray. So this is my first coat. My first application is very light. It should almost be like a dusting on the piece. And it doesn't matter if it gets on other areas, because you'll be painting over them. Now I'm using what's in this brush to do the whole front of the beard. As you can see, it did that whole front, one coat. I do it at least 2 or 3 times until I achieve the desired effect, and that's up to you how white you want it. Again, I put a dot. There's like nothing in that brush. Work it out on the paper towel. And you do have an area in the back here, okay, that has some beard on it also. So again, try to do it so you could see it. Now before I dip again, I'm going to go back on the front. Now, if you find that when you're doing a second coat, it's lifting up the first coat, then it's too wet. Then you have to wait a while. But if you put it on properly and you have really nothing in the brush, see this now? Now I know I have nothing in the brush. I'll keep going back and forth. And it gets like that dusty look. When you dry brush and you have too much paint in the brush, you can tell. You can tell it's more of a wet look. But that dusty look is really what's nice. And when you're dry brushing, I guess with a little darker color, and you're putting it on properly, you see a powder forming on the table. So I'm going to do it one more time. It's really a fast process. And I'm going to do the back side again. And I'll go over this one more time. Now this one is very white. So it depends. Like I said, it depends on how white you want to make it. But it should always be a slow process. If you're getting the white immediately with your first application, you're putting it on too heavy. You want to always keep that gray showing in the crevices. So this one's a little darker than that one. That one's whiter. But I think I'm going to leave it because I like the way it came out. But you can always go back and put more. I could finish the piece and go back and put more later on also. So I'm not going to be using this brush right now. So I'm going to put this aside. I'm not washing it. Just in case I want to go back, I don't want a wet brush. So, but you do wash it at the end of the day when you're finished using it. Otherwise, the paints will harden up in the hairs. Okay, so I'm going to paint the buttermilk next. It's Mako's buttermilk that I'm using. And I painted that on the outside, and then I sponged medium portrait. I think I'm using All Mako paints for this. I don't have much in it, so I'm going to work out of the cap. Oop, there's not much in there at all. All right, I think I'll put it in my palette. Okay, so I'm using a different brush now. A nylon. I'll start with the bottom. Now the bottom, I painted the bottom of the planter in the same color that I'm painting the sides, and I painted the bottom of him with the color I put on his clothes, which is accent green, which I love accent green. It's Mako's accent green. And make sure when you put your colors on, they're smooth. If you see ridges in your paint, I don't know if you can see that, go the opposite way and pull it out. You don't want any ridges in your paint. Nice and smooth. That's why you don't put a lot of paint in the brush. When you have a big area like this and you have an area that you can spread it to, you can put a little more in your brush. When you're working in a small area, put a small amount in your brush because there's no way to spread it. It's even a good idea to probably do 2 coats of this. It gives you a little better sealer, and just in case you missed any spots, you pick it up on the second application. Don't forget to do the top rim. See, earthenware bisque is what we're working with, and it's porous. So if I didn't glaze the inside, you would not be able to put a plant in it. And you just have to hope that it's all covered, and I did my best. I pretty much think that they're all covered in glaze. So and you can work with a smaller brush. I'm just working with this big brush just to get it done. So I know it's boring just watching me base coating. And I'll show you how I sponged it, and we'll do the leaves last. Oh, you know what? I didn't get my leaf stencils. I guess that would help, huh? So I'm going to pause you for 1 minute. Okay, I had to take a break and go get my leaf stencils that you have in your kits. These are the 2 stencils that we've cut out for you. Just wanted to make sure I had them. So I'm finished with the buttermilk that I put on there. And now I'm going to take the beige color, which is called Medium Portrait. I put some in my palette. And I took a very holy sponge, has a lot of holes in it, and kind of roll it that you can grab it like so. Pick up a little bit of the Medium Portrait in it and blot it out on a paper towel till you get like an open look on it, a more holy look. This is what I mean by a holy look. See, it's just meshy looking. I don't know if I'm using the right word, but something like that. And then tap gently and twist your hand so you don't get the same design. You know, if you just do this, this, you're going to have the same look. So I do twist it. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you get it on some of the other areas. You could do the top. And you only need 1 little dip and you're fine. It does the whole piece. So I have some on the glove, but I know I'm going to be going over that. And it's up to how much you want. Okay? See this one? And then I have this one. Okay? I can get a little closer up here on the hand. Okay, so now I'm going to throw that in the water because the paints will dry up in your sponge as fast as they dry on the piece. All right, so we've got that done. Now I'm going to proceed with painting his nose. So I'm going to use that same flesh color, the Medium Portrait that I just sponged on there. I'm going to use that on his nose. So you can use the buttermilk if you want it lighter, or you can use the Medium Portrait. This one, I have another color flesh that I use, but it doesn't really matter. You can use this. You could put a little bit of the buttermilk in it if you want it a little bit lighter. I just added a little buttermilk to my brush just to make it a little bit lighter. And then later on with the orange, with a little buttermilk in the brush, I stipple the nose. Okay, so his nose might be a little bit different in color, but it really doesn't matter. Oops, my phone is ringing. I thought I disconnected it. Okay, so next I'm going to paint the 211, which is the orange rust from Mako. It's one of my favorite colors. And I'm going to paint that on his hat. So I'm going to use the smaller brush first. I'm going to do that, his hat and his gloves. And I'll use the smaller brush first, and I'll do my edging where it comes close to the nose and his beard. Then I'll take a bigger brush and do the other areas. I always find that's the way I like working, but everybody works the way they want to work. So I'm working with the smaller brush and edging. And the reason I chose to do the 211, the orange rust first, versus the 57 is I find that the darker colors do cover the lighter colors, you know, better than the other way around. Some colors are pretty solid and some aren't. But the accent green that I'll be using is a pretty solid color. Boy, they're insistent, huh? And I disconnected my phone here, but that's in another room. I guess I have to disconnect all of them. Okay. And then I did his gloves also in the orange rust. So when I get over here close to his glove, it doesn't really matter if I get it on there. If you want to do them a different color, you can. And if you want to go get your own paints, you can go into Michael's and you can get just water-based acrylics. I'm not as familiar with what they carry, so, but any acrylics will work on this. I think the folk art colors, or there's a craft something color also that are pretty good. But I mean, I like Mako's. I like to support the ceramic industry. But if you don't have access to them, there's not that many ceramic stores around anymore where you can get color. Okay, so I did the trim, and I'll proceed, you know what, before I change brushes, I'll do his gloves. Onto the gloves on the side there. It's hard for me to face it to you and have you see what I'm doing and then me see at the same time. And I know that there's ways of putting other cameras up and everything, but I am not tech savvy. So I do the best I can with these videos. I probably should have an even smaller brush when I'm getting closer here, but that's why I said you have, the tools are important that you work with, and if you have an even smaller brush, it might be better to do the trim. Okay, I'm almost done with that one. Okay, it's one glove. I'll get his other glove over here on this side. Now, I'm not being, probably not as neat as I would be if I took more time, but I don't want you to have to be watching me painting forever. You get the idea. Now, I went all over his planter just now with my brush. So what I'm going to do is, you can go over it with the beige color, but I find it's a little harder to cover. So what I do is I take a brush with a little bit of water, keep putting it in the water, wipe it, put it in the water and wipe it. And while it's wet, it comes off. If you get it right away, it will come off. Okay. Yeah, I should have gotten a much smaller brush to do this. And underneath, I missed underneath here. Okay, and I could always go back and touch up with the beige color later. So now I'm going to get my bigger brush again that I was using to do the planter, wash it out really well, dry it, and do the rest of his hat, which is a lot easier to do now because I did all the edging. So now I can use a bigger brush. Just make sure you spread it out. Don't leave those ridges. I know I always tell you that. See all those ridges that are in there right now? If you leave that like that, that will stay like that when it dries, and then you'd have to be sanding it to get it out. So it's better just to keep going back and forth. Make sure it's smooth before it dries. And with the orange rust that I'm using, you might need 2 coats, but I kind of go over it at the same time. So as I'm doing my 1 coat, I go back. And that's how you get away with doing 2 coats. Go back as long as it's dry enough. If you put it on smooth enough, it dries immediately. See that? That's just about dry already. Just pull it out and it'll dry right away, and then you can just go right back over it. I see people with fans and letting their acrylics dry on the piece. I never have to do that because if you put them on right and they're not heavy, you can touch it up immediately. Okay, make sure you get under the hat. And then later I'll go back in when the hat is dry, and I just put a little bit of brown in the crevices, and that's why we'll use that dry brushing brush again. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to the green. Now when I did the dark green, as I said, it's Mako's number 57 accent green. I did it on the entire clothes, including the cuffs, and then I pounced some of the lighter green on top of the darker green. So I'll get some of the dark green in here. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to use, oops, I missed a whole big spot there. I'm going to use the smaller brush to do my edging with the green. So I'll use my smaller brush here and get onto the cuffs. I don't know how to explain this, but if I'm explaining this right, but what I do when I paint is I always paint away from the other color that I've done. So I don't go into it this way. I go this way, and then I go this way. So you don't have a tendency to put it up onto the other color. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So I think what I'll do is I'll just do one side so that you're not bored with watching me do this whole entire piece. And then I'll go to the stencils and show you what I did with the stencils and the dry brushing on the hat and the pouncing on the gloves. Now, my husband Lou always has a tendency to ask people is, how do you know when you're done? That's up to you. You want to do more than I did. You want to put dots on his hat. You want to put some of the fall leaves on his hat and his clothes. That's your prerogative. I always tell everyone you're the artist and you take it as far as you want. You could just keep painting and painting until you're happy with it. I look for simplicity when I do these because a lot of these I'm teaching in library classes, and we are limited to 2 hours. So my pieces are not as detailed as they can be. And a lot of the people I'm dealing with are not artists. Some are, and they're just there to do something cute and to have a nice night out. So I want it to be simple and easy for them and yet look like it's a lot of work. So that's always my goal, make it look like it's been, it's taken a long time to do it, but it doesn't take a long time. So I'll finish up this one side, and then also don't forget to do the bottom. Do the whole entire bottom with the green. I won't finish that. I'll just do this part. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Okay, now it's a little wet, so I'm going to lay it down. Swish your brushes, don't bang them in the bottom of bowls. This is usually a no-no. I have my brush laying in water. I usually always just swish it and lay it across the top of the bowl like this until I can get to the sink to wash it. Okay, I don't think I need the white anymore, so I'm going to close that up. But I am going to get the lighter green out, which is called Country Sage, number 19. And I'm going to pounce a little bit of that. I'm going to use my smaller brush. I mean, you can use your dry brushing brush if it's small enough. If it's big, it's going to be a little hard to do it with. So I'm just going to use my smaller brush. And I'm going to take the green, put a little bit in the brush, and just pounce it. And the reason I'm pouncing it is I don't have to get right up to the edges. You could leave some of the dark showing around the edges. Now mine is a little wet, so you really should let it dry. It gives it like a furry look. Okay, got that? See, there's still some green showing around the edge where it gets close to the glove, and that's okay. I did that on this one too. See, there's green showing here along the edge. If you want it painted, you can paint it. If you want to do stitches on it, you can do stitches. Stitches are easy to do with a toothpick. If you take a toothpick and you just do little stitches, I've done that on gloves also. All right, so now I'll do some of the dry brushing in the hat. And I used a brown to do that. You can use the green, you can use whatever color you want. And that you really have to take out on the, I'm going to get a dry paper towel I have here. Okay, so I'm going to pick up, now because I had the white in the brush, the brown will be a little bit lighter. So what I do is I just do it once or twice to get rid of the previous color in the brush. Okay, and then I have just a little bit of brown in those crevices. So if you have a nice pointy brush, you just get in there with a very light touch, and wherever there's a crease in his hat. And if it's too much and you don't like it, you can always just touch it up with the orange again. And I just go around and just put a little bit in the crevices. Little creases in his hat. I call these character spots, gives him a little character. What's a cute idea too is you go to the store, or Michael's, maybe the dollar store, little spiders, little black spiders, you could put one up on his hat. You can get any kind of little decorations, leaves. Now can you see what I did there? Now if you think that's too dark, it does look dark, but it's not really dark, it's the light shining on it. If you think it's too dark, you just go over it with the orange. See, that looks dark, but it's not. Okay, it's the lighting that's doing that. Okay, so that's how I did the hat. Now with the leaves, all right, with the leaves, we're also going I also used my stencil brush, but if you have a small brush and a little on the stiff side would be best. And I used red, orange, and green. So I'm going to get those three colors out. I have, close up the brown. It's always a good idea to work neat. I have so many colors open here, and then if you just hit them, they spill. So I'm going to close them up. Okay, I have all those closed. So now I have my red, my green, and I have the orange in the palette here. I'm going to start with my larger leaf. I'll put that right in the front, right here. So what I say to do is hold this down with 2 fingers, as tight as you can, so there's hardly any air that you can see underneath the edge of it. So I'm going to take this brush, I'm using my dry brushing brush, and I'm going to pick up the orange first. I'm going to pick up a dot of the orange, pounce it out on the paper towel, and I'm just going to do, like, say, the top edge of the leaf. I don't wash my brush. I pick up a little bit of red and put that on part of the leaf. Okay, and then I pick up a little bit of green. You might have to do it twice to get rid of some of the color in your brush, because you don't want to pick up the stencil and start again. Okay, now if you have too much on your brush, it's going to bleed underneath. Okay, so that's how I did my leaves. Let's do another one. Again, hold it down with your 2 fingers. And since I ended with the green, I think I'll stay with the green. And they could be in different positions, you know, different areas. I'm doing the green up one of the sides now. wipe the brush out, pick up a little bit of the red. It'll be a dark red because you have the green in your brush. Okay, and then pick up a little bit of orange. And see, I hardly really worry about cleaning the brush well. And you still get it on there. If it's bleeding underneath on you, you have too much paint in your brush. Okay, see that? And then you could do another big one. I would maybe do 3 big ones going across. I have them staggered here. And then on the in-betweens, and you could, tilt them a little bit. They don't have to be straight up and down. Twist it and do the same thing with this one. So now I have the orange in the brush. I'll continue with what I have in the brush. Do the orange. And it doesn't have to be all 3 colors on them. I'm just going to do 2 colors on this one. Okay, I just did orange and red on that one. We'll do one up here. Okay, I'm noticing that the little stems are not really coming out, so what I'll do is I'll take my brush after and do a little stem on them. And since I have the red, I ended with the red, I'll begin with the red. And I'm going to pick up some of the dark green. I don't know if that will really show. Maybe too dark. Yeah, it's a little too dark. I'll go back to the light green. And this one I just did red and green, and that's it. Okay, so you can do an assortment. You can stagger them. You could do all big ones, small ones. And then at the end, I don't have my pointy brush here, but at the end, when you're finished, you can go back. I don't know if I could do it with this one. Probably not. Let's see. You can go back and just do a little, not bad. You could do a little stem. See that little stem I did? You could do that. You could do it in the brown, you could do it in the green, and if you have a smaller brush, it's better. Okay, see the little stems on there? All right. So that's about it. I think I have everything. Oh, the shoe. Okay, so the shoe I did in brown. Forgot about his little shoe. And you can use those stencils over and over. You don't have to throw them away. Just make sure that it didn't seep through the back. And that's, if you have too much paint in your brush, that's going to happen. So make sure that you don't put a lot of paint in your brush, like nothing, practically nothing in the brush. So we'll do his little shoe here. Yeah, looks funny because I didn't finish painting it, but I just want you to have the idea of how to do this. And if you have any questions, just put them here on YouTube and I can answer you. I'm also on Facebook under Rosemary Ceramics. If you have any questions, you can message me. I appreciate all of you taking the time to see this video and enjoying these ceramics. I mean, it's my love. My ceramics are my love. They're my life. Well, part of my life anyway. Of course, family comes first. But ceramics has become a family to me. I have a lot of great followers and great students, and I appreciate everyone very much. And if you haven't subscribed to me, I'd appreciate if you subscribe to me on YouTube. It doesn't cost anything, and it would be great. So if you have any questions, like I said, you can take a picture of this here right now. You can, the back is pretty much just what you see. It's just the dark green and the orange, and then you have his beard and his shoe. And you could do the shoe whatever color you want. You could change the colors. If you have other colors, feel free, experiment. Oh, I didn't do the nose, and so my brush is so full of greens and everything right now. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but let's see. I'll pick up some of the flesh in the brush. That might clean out. And I'll pick up a little bit of orange. A little bit of buttermilk. And I have so many colors in this brush, but yeah, it worked. Okay, I just dabbed a little bit on his nose. Okay. What else didn't I do? I think that's pretty much done. Have fun with the leaves. And if you make a mistake with the leaves and you don't like the way it looks, keep a wet paper towel handy and wipe it off immediately. And it'll take most of it off. Sometimes it doesn't take it all off. Take most of it off. And it's a lot easier to cover over if you get the brunt of the color off. Okay. So just do a neater job than I did. I was just doing this to demonstrate so you know what I did. And that looks better, but you don't see his face. On this side, I didn't finish it. Will I finish it? Probably not. I have so many extras of these pieces from doing videos that what I usually do with these is I put them back in the kiln and I burn the colors off of them. 90% of the color comes off, and so you can repaint it. It doesn't all come off, though. Sometimes it leaves a powder on it. If you have any questions, like I said, please leave me a message either on Facebook or on YouTube, and I will get back to you. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate your doing these videos and picking up these kits at the libraries. For those of you who have picked up kits, for those of you who will be doing it in person with me, I will see you soon at one of the libraries. Thank you again for your support. I really appreciate it.